In the Urantia book, the mansion worlds are the first great training worlds of the surviving mortal career. They are not presented merely as places of rest, but as schools of transformation, where the soul gradually grows from material-mindedness into Morontia living. Mansonia Four and Mansonia Five mark a beautiful shift in that journey. The early mansion worlds deal much with survival adjustment, correction, and preparation. But by the fourth and fifth worlds, the Ascender is beginning to enter a much wider life, social, cultural, cosmic, and increasingly spiritual. By the time the ascending mortal reaches the fourth mansion world, a great distance has already been traveled from the first awakening after death. This is no longer the beginning of the Morontia career. The soul has now well entered that new life between the material and the spiritual.
On this world, the Ascender is permitted to visit Transition World number 4. There, the pilgrim becomes familiar with the headquarters and training schools of the Super Angels, including the brilliant evening stars. Through the ministry of these super angels, the advancing mortals are brought very near to the various orders of the sons of God, especially during their periodic visits to Jerusalem, the system capital. As the Ascenders grow, more and more of Jerusalem opens before them. Their minds are expanding, and with that expansion, new grandeurs of the universe begin to unfold. Mansonia Four is especially important because the Ascender now begins to fit more naturally into the group work and class functions of Morontia life. This is not a lonely salvation. It is a shared ascent. The soul learns to live, work, study, and serve with others in a new and higher social order. Here, the Ascenders also gain a deeper appreciation for the broadcasts and other expressions of local universe culture and progress. They are no longer thinking only as survivors from one planet. They are beginning to participate in the wider life of Nebadon. The great lesson of the fourth mansion world is social. The book says this is where ascending mortals are really first introduced to the demands and delights of the true social life of Morontia creatures. This is a new kind of society. It is not based on selfish ambition. It is not driven by personal aggrandizement. It is not organized around conquest, competition, or the desire to rise above others. Instead, a new social order begins to appear, one founded on mutual appreciation, understanding sympathy, unselfish service, and the realization that all these ascending beings share one supreme destiny, the paradise goal of divine perfection. On Mansonia Four, the soul begins to understand that true progress is not self-display. It is not spiritual isolation. It is learning to live in harmony with others who are also seeking God. The Ascenders are becoming more fully conscious of what it means to be God-knowing, God-revealing, God-seeking, and God-finding.
The Urantia book compares the intellectual and social culture of this fourth mansion world to the life of a normal evolutionary planet in the post-Teacher Sun age. But spiritually, Mansonia Four is far beyond that planetary stage. Mansonia Four is where the Ascender begins to truly live as a social Morontia being. It is the world of group life, universe culture, mutual service, and the first real taste of a society built on love rather than self-interest. The move to the fifth mansion world is described as a tremendous forward step in the life of a Morontia progressor. This world gives the Ascender a real foretaste of Jerusalem life. That means the soul is now approaching a level of culture and consciousness that resembles life on the system capital itself. The Ascender begins to see more clearly what loyal evolutionary worlds are destined to become when they progress normally under divine guidance.
The culture of the fifth mansion world corresponds generally to the early era of light and life on normal evolutionary planets. This is a very advanced comparison. It helps explain why some highly cultured and progressive mortals from advanced worlds may sometimes be exempt from passing through one or more of the mansion worlds. They have already achieved, during planetary life, some of what others must learn after resurrection. Before leaving Mansonia Four, the Ascender has mastered the local universe language. On Mansonia Five, language training advances further. The Pilgrim now devotes more time to perfecting the tongue of Uversa, the language of the super-universe. From Jerusalem onward, all ascending mortals are bilingual, and later they continue expanding their vocabulary as they move toward Havona and Paradise. Upon arrival on Mansonia Five, the Ascender is permitted to visit the corresponding transition world number 5, the headquarters of the Sons of God. Previously, the Pilgrim had heard about these divine sons and may have encountered them on Jerusalem, but now the Ascender begins to know them more personally and directly. Mansonia Five also begins preparing the mortal survivor for the next great phase of the Ascent, the constellation worlds. Here, the Ascender meets the first instructors, who begin preparing them for the later sojourn on the constellation headquarters. This preparation continues on Mansonia 6 and 7 and receives its finishing touches on Jerusalem. But the greatest statement about Mansonia 5 is this: a real birth of cosmic consciousness takes place on Mansonia number 5. The Ascender is becoming universe-minded. This is a huge spiritual and intellectual change. The soul is no longer thinking merely as a former human from one world. The mind begins to open to the grandeur of the universe career. A vast destiny begins to dawn upon the Ascender. The Paradise Ascent, once only believed in, now becomes a living reality of consciousness. At this stage, enthusiasm for the Havona Ascent begins to appear in a real experiential way. The Ascender is not merely being carried along by required training. Something more mature is happening within. Study becomes voluntary. Unselfish service becomes natural. Worship becomes spontaneous.
This is one of the most beautiful descriptions in the Mansion World sequence. The soul is no longer simply being corrected, trained, or adjusted. A real Morontia character is beginning to bud. A true Morontia creature is evolving. Mansonia 5 is the world where the Ascender begins to think cosmically. It is a foretaste of Jerusalem, a preparation for the constellation worlds, a deeper acquaintance with the sons of God, and the stage where worship, service, and study begin to flow more naturally from the growing soul.